Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is staying safe out there and also staying clean and being aware of everything that's going on. Aside from that, this video is honestly about the anime Yugioh and how, in my thoughts and my personal point of view, how the anime itself is not only immensely iconic for it being a mainstream classic, but also how it's like a strong foundation in the anime community and also especially a strong foundation in the Blerd anime community as a subculture or as like a main cultural group as well too. Now, first of all, honestly, let me start by saying that Yu-Gi-Oh as a franchise, it impacted the anime community first of all by being a good card game. Honestly, it was a good card game because of the fact of it started card tournaments. It also started the whole factor of you have like a whole bunch of collectibles, like honestly dual discs to even like array and a plethora of different types of Yu-Gi-Oh cards all over the place and stuff. And it grows even more to this day, especially as well too. But the main generation that I'm going to be focusing on would be Generation One. The only reason why I'm focusing on Generation One is because I feel like it's a foundation to both anime lovers and also blurred anime lovers as well too, especially for us blurred anime lovers. And it kind of displays the fact of us blurs kind of like in a way under our noses made the anime community strong as well too in our own way because again generation one kind of flexed the fact that it has a whole lot of attributes like honestly giving respect and representation towards us black people. It doesn't do that like 100% correctly, but it heavily implies it though, especially when you see like characters like Yami, basically the pharaoh, the king pharaoh back in Generation One, the first like the very first season slash first generation where Yugi, aka Yugi Moto, started and stuff. Which honestly, Yugi as a character himself is the first main character before any other main characters as well before like the whole Yu-Gi-Oh card franchise started to branch off more and more. But aside from those facts, let me focus in on Yami a little bit more. Yami, for one, he's like a king, honestly, back in the Egyptian times. He was a strong king and on top of that a caring one. And also he knew how to rule very correctly as well too. Now, Yami, when it comes to his like display of his representation of us black people. Now, honestly, aside from Yami being a great king and also knew how to rule, is also the fact that, well, when it comes to his appearance, it's very biased, but I will say when it comes to the anime, looking back at it, well, just, make a little bit refreshers towards the anime itself of Yu-Gi-Oh! It'll be just the fact that Yami's appearance when going through like Egyptian flashbacks of his like first point of view, he was represented well. His skin tone was honestly like black slash brown, like basically black. He was black basically, and on top of that, all of his followers. Long story short, because he was a king, honestly, everyone was black, as honestly respectably good representation because we all know as blurred slash black people that Egyptians are black, especially well they are a part of Africa. Long story short, or the motherlands. They're just deep in what motherlands, and it's hot as hell around there. But aside from all that, appearance I would say is good when it comes to his flashbacks, but when it comes to modern day, when it came to day where Yami like soul, of course, was intertwined with like one of the Egyptian relics, like the Millennium Puzzle, and then and also his grandfather, um, Yugi, and also his grandfather himself basically found the Millennium Puzzle. Long story short, that's when honestly they slowly learn that Yami's soul is intertwined with the puzzle because long story short, when Yugi gets serious, we all know when we watch the show itself, honestly, it's just the fact that Yami takes over, and even in some episodes, like when Yugi went up against Kaiba or Yugi went up against Pegasus, especially characters like Pegasus, because Pegasus kept on using his like dumbfoundingly OP, like what's the word, Millennium Piece, like his Millennium Eye, just to keep on like predicting what Yugi's next move is going to be with his deck of cards. Long story short, and ooh, that was one of the hardest matches, but Yugi and Yami honestly finessed it because they kept switching mind/switching personalities back and forth. But while I'm at it talking about like the personality switching from Yami and Yugi, it would be just the fact that well, some people honestly point out the fact that Yami's appearance is always light skinned and not dark skinned. It always looks too similar to like Yugi Moto's than Yami's like original appearance back when he was in Egypt, and his like perspective of everything when he was in Egypt and was alive and not always intertwined with like and like relic like the Millennium Puzzle. Now that I have a theory for that. My theory is honestly, it's honestly towards it's directed towards the creators of the show, and like how the anime kind of like created it. There's also a side theory to where maybe there's a logical explanation for the switch to be the way that it is appearance wise. Now, the first like I guess assumption or assumed type of theory would be just the fact that what if the appearance of Yami was more light skinned and looked similar to Yugi is because of the fact that, well, it's because of the creators. Long story short, there has been some like depiction of honestly in the real world that even though most people throw shade at us black people, long story short, they still like and respect our culture and they still like and respect how we are and mainly just our culture. Us as people, they throw shade, but when it comes to our culture and I guess our demeanor and stuff, they always give respect to it one way or the other. So I feel like that's my theory of what if honestly the creators had a thing where Yami honestly became more light skinned like Yugi because that's how the editors wanted it to be or creators wanted it to be. If I had to make like another like one analogy or one reference to this theory about the creators wanting it to be the way it is, it would be just think about it like the Get Out type of perspective. Basically, the movie Get Out, white people wanted to be us, so what they wanted to do was they just brainwashed certain black people or most black people, and then have like whoever the top like I guess buyer who wanted to brainwash the like brother or sister to put their brain inside the black body and they control the black body while the original person, which is the black person subconscious, is floating. It's kind of similar to that in the sense if you think about it. Long story short, it's me saying white people just want to be us and also want to be blurred, like having like blurred characteristics versus just always having like plain characteristics. Now, the second theory when it comes to Yami's appearance would be the fact of, well, it goes back to generational type of representation. And what I mean by generational type of representation is because of the fact of, well, it's like family bonds or family ties. Think about it, whereas yes, you have a gene pool, and honestly, that gene pool, you always think the gene pool is always pure, whatever generation you are. But when you look back at your family tree or your ancestors, one way or the other, you can see that you're mixed with something else, and you're mixed with a someone who was a brother or sister, like a blerd, aka a black person, or honestly you could be mixed with someone white, or you could be mixed with some other type of ethnicity or cultural group of some type of difference. And that's my other theory about Yami's appearance being more light skinned is because, well, Yugi is light skinned and, his own race, and Yami sadly is a spirit inside of a Egyptian puzzle. So sadly, in a way, Yami's just riding Yugi as like an avatar, as a sense, when Yugi honestly chooses to switch towards Yami, or Yami honestly feels like, nah, bruh, I'm going to take control for a hot second when we have to get all aggressive. That's my secondary theory. Now, my other reason why I feel like Yu-Gi-Oh as a whole is a good iconic like anime series that flexes basically blurredness and also black culture as a whole is just, well, mainly in another thing that first generation does and always and also implies is the fact of all the characters are essentially black or have some type of black ancestry, which kind of goes back to me even saying again, like I said a minute ago, just honestly, certain people of different culture want to be like us more, or want to, like our culture altogether. Because think about it, even though you have like certain characters like Kaiba and Pegasus at flexing and acting like they're smart enough to like make the card game the way that it is, it's just nah, fam. The Egyptians honestly made the game itself. All they did was just kept playing with it and enhancing it in different ways with different technologies. And I'm going to get deeper into the card game more better or more intimately in a minute. But honestly, I'm still going to focus more on like just how everyone is a black character in a way, if you think about it. The only reason why I say strongly all characters are black in a way or have some type of black ancestry is because when you get deeper in like the first generation, where it's mainly focused on Yugi and his crew and Kaiba in that generation, it would be just the fact that you slowly learn, aside from Yami and Yugi possibly being like related ancestral wise, because both of their like, I guess what's the word? Both of them look so similar in a way, facial features and also body features. They're so similar that they're kind of identical in a sense. Not 100%, but to some degree, they both look identical. Same thing with Kaiba. When you look deeper within like the show itself, Yu-Gi-Oh, you slowly learn that Kaiba had like an ancestor. And then honestly, you have another character like Bakura, which 100% Bakura was like a white dude. So honestly, you have like another character like Bakura, which was honestly like a neutral character to where he's between good and bad. At least 20. I'm just going to call him 21st century Bakura because honestly, when you go into like Generation One with certain characters like Bakura himself, when honestly, Bakura is in Yugi's timeline, Oz Yugimoto's timeline to be more exact. It would be just the fact that he's 100% white, and when you go into his like characteristics, he's very chill and very polite. But when he ran into like the what's the word, the like relic, like the Egypt, like the Millennium Ring, My bad, y'all. My bad for my pronunciation. It's just been a while or a long time since I watched Yu-Gi-Oh! But when Bakura ran to the Millennium Ring, it'd be just the fact that honestly, that's when he found his counterpart or his ancestral bond with his past self, which honestly his ancestral like representation was named Bakura as well too, and honestly, when researching the character Bakura himself, and you look into his history, but old Bakura was a shady mofo. Dude stole, he honestly killed, he did a lot of shady things. Old Bakura. Yeah, but that's one of the messed up Egyptians that we ain't gonna talk about that much. But aside from that, yeah, um, honestly, that's when you look back at just this point of all these characters having ancestral ties with Egyptians or Egyptian-based characters, and all the Egyptians are black or have our pigmentation, us Blerd's pigmentation, and our appearance, which is good representation when you look back at their perception of things like King Yami's perception of things. Honestly, it goes to show you that in a way, Yu-Gi-Oh! And First Generation, us Blurs kind of made and break the show, especially when you go deeper in when the show goes deeper within itself in First Generation when it ends because around the ending, I can't per se say every little detail about the ending, but when you go around the ending, the biggest bad or biggest villain that you get to face off with is not Kaiba. Kaiba is more of a rival. His biggest villain was Merit, which honestly is another character, which I would 100% say he stayed being black the whole generation or whole representation of Yu-Gi-Oh! First generation, Merit has always been black. He's been black in the 21st century, where Yugi timeline to also just he was black back in the past, where it was King Yami's perception of everything. He always stayed black 24/7, but he was the biggest bad that Yugi had to face off with along with King Yami. And yeah, that's my reasoning as to why I feel like honestly blur culture be a lot with this whole anime as a whole. And then another thing I like to point out when it comes to blur culture and why it's heavily applied that blur culture was flexed in Yu-Gi-Oh! In the first generation would be honestly going back to the whole topic of the card game itself, Yu-Gi-Oh. Now, I'm not too intimately like aware or too deep within how the card game worked, but I know from a little research from media a little bit of the show itself. Egyptians made the card game first of all. Now the show does honestly confirm. Now the first seasons of the show where Pegasus was introduced, Pegasus does admit that honestly, yes, the card game was created by the Egyptians, and on top of that, even Yugi's grandfather and even his like honestly his friend basically Yugi's grandfather and his friend because long story short, both Yugi's grandfather and Yugi's grandfather's I guess associate or friend basically were archaeologists and they slowly researched everything that was going on within the Egyptians like I guess territory and like their whole culture itself going into ruins or different pyramids that were vacant for years. And they just honestly researched the best they could. All researchers, whether Pegasus or I'm just going to say, long story short, Yugi's grandfather's expedition team, which is him and his friend, they all admitted that the Egyptians, long story short, did made the card game but how like it's more intimately more intertwined with it being Blerd culture and Egyptian culture would be just the fact of before like certain characters like Pegasus like got his hands on like the concept of Egyptian dual cards, it would be the fact that dual cards and dual monsters were first created by the Egyptians by honestly having this whole concept or this power concept with Ba and Ka. Ba and Ka, long story short. Now, honestly, like I said before, I'm not 100% like intimately like close with this information, but I know it because I researched it a little bit. But the whole concept of Ba and Ka is basically it's a spirit energy type of concept within the like Egyptian like culture itself back in Yu-Gi-Oh. Ba and Ka is basically both good spirit energy and bad spirit energy. And when you combine both of those energies together, you can summon dual monsters, long story short. And that's how the whole game got started back in the Egyptian times, back in King Yami's time, before you get to 21st century where Yugimoto's time, where all the dual cards were just nothing but just cardboard cutouts, or like you have people or players like Pegasus or Kaiba getting their hands on like the concept of monster cards and just trying to just enhance it more and play with it. That's it. You ain't make nothing. You weren't original. All you did was just play with it and tinker with it. That's it. Or made it look like that. It's your success. It's your success to some degree, but it's not your success to where it's like it was built from the ground up. It was all because of the Egyptians. And that's why I say strongly that Yu-Gi-Oh! From just first generations, whether it be character point of view or whether it be how the whole show was made and its foundation itself, honestly, it's all Blerd culture and it's all black culture. Long story short, you can't honestly finesse it, you can't argue about it. Even I can still argue the fact of new generations of different dual monsters, no matter how far you go inside of Yu-Gi-Oh! Itself as an anime series, whether it's fifth, fourth, or second or third generations, it's still the fact of the Egyptians made it first. Blerd culture kind of made it first, long story short, because Yugi's like timeline slash generation was the first generation before you had 5Ds, before you had like Yu-Gi-Oh! XD, before you had other different Yu-Gi-Oh! Type of remakes or like different like descriptions or displays of the whole show or anime itself. It was all started at Blerd culture slash Egyptian culture. That's my argument. That's my video. Please leave a like if you like it, and please subscribe if you honestly enjoyed it, and please leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Thank you and bye.